avant-garde.
All right, welcome to Torture Garden. I'm Scott,
I'm Jimmy.
and today we have a very exciting new review for you. Hot off the presses, new Bjork.
Yeah.
Not someone I feel like needs that much of an introduction. If you follow music, you've probably heard her name at some point. But basically, she's well-known Icelandic songwriter. Falls into the art
weird
pop,
stuff.
electronic, experimental, almost arguably modern classical in a lot of what she does. Just in the sense that she uses a lot of classical arrangements, but she's one of those artists that kind of defies clear. Like she just, there's some artists that really reach that point where they just kind of are Bjork. Like I can think of maybe FKA Twigs. It does kind of what she does, and of course she's much newer. But I feel like Bjork kind of does her own thing. It's very unique. She's been around for
too long.
When did debut? I think like probably early '90s, right? Not.
Yeah. I mean, she's been going since she was a kid.
Exactly.
Do you ever see that album cover? Actually,
that fucked me up because when I looked on, I think it was Sputnik Music. You had like this weird ass like album from the 70s.
Yeah.
And then suddenly all her stuff, and I was like, wait a second, like did they merge two artists by accident? But no, I guess she did shit when she was a kid. I mean, obviously we all did shit
actually,
when we were kids.
side note, Oliver from Deep Cuts just did a guide to Bjork, which is worth checking out.
Yeah.
It's like 45 minutes, so yeah, I understand if you haven't watched it yet, but it's worth going into just to see his take on a lot of it. But
because she has, how many albums does she have?
I think Utopia will be her 9th, I believe.
One. Yeah, so she has the debut in 77, but then she has
debut
in
I don't think she really counts that one.
Sure. So if you start with debut in 93, that's one. You have debut, post, homogenic, Vespertine, Medulla, Volta, Biophilia, Vonacura, and Utopia. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 9. So
I think
nine albums.
One in there. Are you missing? No. I'm thinking of some of the remix stuff and like Selma songs and stuff like that are like compilations. But I think before we get into the review, it's just worth noting her last album thematically was dark as shit.
Yes.
About her breakup with her longtime romantic partner Matthew Barney, who's also like an avant-garde filmmaker. And so in response to that, this is sort of the other side of that coin, which is she described it as her Tinder record.
Yeah.
Which can I just say, like, way to just like shit on your own album. like I mean, this is like, I just kept thinking about that over and over again. I'm like, it would be like if I describe my writing as like worthy of BuzzFeed. Like it's like I don't know. It just astounds me. Like why would you describe something like that? Like, and I mean, like I say as someone who actually uses Tinder. Like, so like
no, I actually didn't know she described it as that, and that's kind of it's kind of unfortunate.
It's one of the it's a little unfortunate, but
I think it's interesting that you bring up that dichotomy, because I think that's very obvious when you listen to both these albums, and not necessarily, at least from my view, in a totally positive way, but I think thematically it makes sense, because Vulnicura is the heartbreak, and kind of Utopia is more like the lovey-dovey, that's the
dating.
So when you have Vulnicura, it feels, to me at least, very specific and meticulous. It's a little bit, I mean, it's lush instrumentation, but it's a little bit more direct in a sense. It's a little bit more, almost like in Heartbreak, you're very specific about like the flaws of your relationship, about the negativity, about the negative feelings you have, and it's very sad, very, very somber, very heavy.
I actually didn't listen to Vulnicura.
You've never listened to Vulnicura?
Maybe I've listened to a couple tracks. I think when we were driving around one day, you had it on.
Yeah,
I listened to a bunch of it, but I actually purposely made sure not to listen to it this time around, because I thought it would be an interesting idea to have someone who's listened to it and likes it as much as you do.
Yeah.
And then to have someone who's a complete plebe
coming
to Utopia.
That's actually a good idea.
Because I do like me some Bjork, but I mean I've really only listened to like her really early stuff, like like Post and Vespertine are probably what I've listened to most. Medula is up there too, but probably just Post and Vespertine are probably the most for me.
Yeah. I actually re-listened to Homogenic, which I actually really love. I think I listened to it once when I first bought it a few years ago, but I listened to it quite a bit and I enjoyed it a lot. This past week. and like I love her voice just so much. Like I'm a huge fan of her voice. It's so unique but powerful. Like a lot of times when you have a very unique singer, sometimes that's at the expense of quality to an extent.
Yeah.
Like I think for me, like I totally understand if people don't like Lou Reed's voice. I like his vocals. I like his delivery. He is not a good singer.
It's sort of like like an Ian Curtis type of thing, or like a Jamie Stewart type of thing.
Exactly. Where they're not necessarily like traditionally quote unquote good singers,
but they bring a lot of charisma into it. It's sort of like Jim Morrison too. That like they bring a lot of personality to their voice.
Exactly.
But I think Bjork, she has a lot of personality, but she's also just basically a virtuoso when it comes to using her voice. Yep. I do have to admit that her phrasing can wear me down a little bit after a while.
Yes, absolutely.
Just because she doesn't seem to deviate from that phrasing that she's always doing.
Yep.
And like anybody hearing this would know exactly what I'm talking about.
If you listen to a full Bjork album, you'll know you'll know exactly what we're talking about. If she varies, on albums where she kind of varies up the compositions and the style she's doing, you don't notice it as much. But I think especially, or at least in relation to, especially this album, I think with Vonacura and Utopia are both in their own respective albums are very thematically similar throughout. So you notice the phrasing a lot more because the music isn't really changing around what she's doing.
What did the music here the production wise remind you of? Because I got a lot of reminded me a lot of like Vespertine a little bit, but like there are parts of it like just like the flutes really. I thought it was a really nice little touch because I think without the flutes it would have been basically like homogenic all over again. Yeah, in a way. So
I think obviously Arca is a great
Arca's really fucking fantastic,
really out there composer or electronic musician. He was on both. I believe he did Volnicura. I'm almost positive he was on Volnicura.
Yeah, he was on Volnicura, and then I think the Hacks and Cloak did a couple tracks of Volnicura too.
Yeah,
but it was mostly Arca.
This one is Bjork and Arca, and then I think there is one track where there's a producer called Rabbit. He's pretty cool. He had an album that came out a few years ago that I enjoyed, and yes, he is on one track here called Loss with not one, not two, but three S's. Yes. How cute! How nice!
Yeah.
So I think for me, honestly, more so Utopia than Volnicura. I heard that Arca influence. Like to me, I could see where Arca kind of fit in on. Obviously, he produced it, so it's clear that he had a huge influence. I think he helped produce almost every track, if not every track. But on this album, I really hear more of his specific style, like his own individual style, than I did on Volnicura.
I really didn't hear that. Like, really, the only time I ever heard anything that was like distinctly Arca was in the percussion. Was in like a lot of the drum beats, because I think a lot of like the more melodic arrangements, the flutes, the strings, the choir, like that just had Bjork's fingerprints all over it.
Sure, for sure, yeah.
Well, obviously, but so I didn't really get to see much of Arca, but I think that's sort of a good thing because it's not an Arca album, it's a Bjork album. It's not like it's a collaboration album; it's under her name.
Yeah, and I think I meant more of a lot of. There are some oddities and a lot of the different instrumentation he brought in. That's something that Arca's really good at, is he brings a lot of different things to the table. Every album is kind of full of a bunch of different ideas.
So let's just get down to it. What do you think?
I will be, and it's interesting to me, and I hate when people do this, and it happens to me often when I have a strong opinion, is that they try to straw man what other people, why they have a, why they have a certain opinion. Like they try to straw man, oh, you only think of that because what? A lot of people I've seen talk about this that like Bjork and like the album, they say, oh, it's just a lot to digest, or they frame it like there's a lot to digest, or it's like too long, or it's like I need time with it, or not too long, but like they make it seem like, I gotta understand it more. I'll just come out with it. This is too long for me.
Yeah.
This is way too long, and not just in like the total runtime, but the individual tracks. There's 14 tracks. The shortest one is in,
I think it's one of those instrumentals.
A small interlude at the end, track 12, which first of all, it's kind of a weird spot for an interlude.
Yes,
because it's literally like, then you have 2 tracks and you're done, and the 2 tracks at the end are 2 of the shorter ones in the album. So I feel like, all the heavy lifting is at the beginning, and then you don't really get that interlude, that instrumental break. Honestly, for me, I really do love Bjork, but I wasn't a huge fan of this record. If I'm being 100%,
I have to agree with you.
I feel bad because I was looking forward to this.
Me too.
Love Bjork, and I liked what she did with Volnakura. I liked the increased emphasis on orchestral arrangements and string arrangements as a focus, and I was interested in the idea of taking that and being more kind of lighthearted and taking the love versus the heartbreak. And it didn't work for me. It was too long. And kind of what I was saying before is how conceptually, I like when you have heartbreak and it's very specific and you're focusing on like he did this, he did that. And with this, I feel the lovingness of just aloofness and of like, oh, I'm in love, and like just kind of, spellbound and lovesick, and just having a lot more kind of free and hazy in a way. And to me, that dichotomy, I could see that. I could pull that out, and that was one of the first things I thought of. But I think it suffered compositionally for me. And I'll let you jump in.
I was just going to say something like that because, I think I credit Bjork a lot with, she does know how to make an album that sounds distinct, even being, even having a career this long. Every album of hers sounds individual. Like there is no 2 albums that sounds the same. Mm-hmm. And while I think parts of Utopia definitely sound a little like Vespertine, a little like Homogenic, it's entirely its own beast. Mm-hmm. Especially with those flutes. Like those flutes are really cool, and the bird sounds, and like that that weird sound that keeps showing up throughout the album. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't even know how to do it. It probably sounds so weird doing it like that, but it almost sounded like a synthesized bird. But I actually really, that was probably my favorite part of the record right there.
It was interesting for sure.
It was just hearing that sound over and over again. So like I think on like that, like on a musical level, it's very cohesive. Like it's very like you're listening to Utopia.
Sure.
But when it comes to the structure of each song, I just was not happy with it. I just felt like it was very aimless in its direction.
Absolutely.
Especially the very first track, Arisen My Senses, was just I was turning it on when I was walking to school, and I was like am I hearing something else or something? Like maybe there's road noise, like the ambient noise that's sort of getting in the way of me listening to this. But listening to it again in my room, same thing. It's just very messy and just sort of scatterbrained, and like that goes throughout the entire thing. And then this is gonna be like really, really like I found the lyrics to be really cringy sometimes.
Absolutely.
Just on this track Blissing Me, literally one of the tracks, one of the lyrics is we send each other MP3s. Mm-hmm. Like it's like it would be like if I referenced MySpace, and if I wrote a song that referenced MySpace, it's like like it's just like you're dating yourself immediately. And then the lyrics, like, we send each other MP3s. Like it's like if I referenced MySpace, and if I wrote a song that referenced MySpace, it's like like it's just like you're dating yourself immediately. It's just like, like, like it's just like you're dating yourself immediately. but I just found that very cringeworthy. But then also the On the Gate, which I actually like the track for the most part, but the whole "I care for you," like over and over and over and over again. Like, and I don't think repetition is a bad thing in a Bjork album. Like that. There's that track on Medulla, "Where's the Line?" that they pretty much repeat "Where is the line" with you over and over and over again. But it's like hypnotic the way she does it there. But here it's just like I sort of ran out of lyrics and don't know what else to do. Yeah, so I'm very divided on it. I'm very mixed because there are some parts I really do like about it. Like the title track I thought was really cool until she started singing, actually. Just like the way she was able to create this environment with just these bird sounds and these flutes, and it sounded like you'd imagine like what a Utopia would sound like. And then I think it was also on it could have been on Utopia, it could have been maybe Body Memory. There was I know there's one track where her phrasing opened up and she started doing some new odd things that I really, really liked. I wish I could remember the exact track, because I thought it was fantastic. Like, I really wish she sort of branched out with that more. But she didn't. It was mostly just, Bjork doing her normal vocal phrasing. Yeah. Which, isn't bad, but when it's an hour and 11 minutes long, it wears on you.
And there it is. Exactly. Yeah, that was a big. So, like you said, Rising My Senses. I was like, okay, like this is kind of slow. Not a huge fan. Blissing Me was okay. I actually really didn't like The Gate, and it was primarily just like the music was okay, but the phrasing and, like you said, the repetition and the lyrics. It was just everything about it. I was like, I don't want to listen to this anymore.
Yeah.
And then I kept.
Oh my God, Body Memory.
Yeah,
the 10-minute track.
9:46. Yeah. And that's the thing is, this isn't towards the end. This is track 5 with 9 more songs to go, and it's just if there was a lot of variety, you know what I mean? Because obviously I think the title track of the Seer is like by Swans is
repetitive as hell.
4th. Or something like that. Like, it's pretty early on in the track listing, but it's interesting and it evolves and it kind of develops and does. And not only that, over the entirety of the Seer, every song kind of has its own identity. They do different things throughout. For this, it was incredibly similar. It flowed together throughout, which in some ways was good. Thematically, it was nice to have something that it did feel cohesive, but not to its
like not in a structural way.
And it just, I tried really hard to pay attention. I tried really hard to be engaged, but after a while I was just waiting out the clock. It just wears you down. And I felt bad because, like, I hated the fact, I knew we were going to be talking about this, and also I really like Bjork. I wanted to give it a good listen, but I was just so bored. By the time when I checked my phone, because I was playing it on Spotify on my phone, when I saw Future Forever, I was like, oh, thank God. That's the last track. I was like, oh my God, thank God we're done.
I was sort of like, it's funny you bring up Swans, because I think they're a really good example of how to make a really long record and do it right.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Like I had, when I was home last week, I had the Seer on, and just like, if I felt the time passing, like I felt that was like under an hour, and that album is not under an hour.
It's not at all.
At all. And it's weird how time just flew by with that. With this, like, and I feel like this happened. I mentioned this last week too, that Björk has this way of dilating time in her albums, and I think it has to do with her phrasing.
Yeah.
That she manages to fill every single second of her album with something.
Yeah.
And it's so much denser, and so I think it's just like it just feels like it lasts way too long. Even the ones that are really short, like Vespertine, which I'm pretty sure is like just a little over half an hour. But it feels like it's like 45 minutes to an hour.
Exactly.
So
whereas this easily felt like it was 2 hours.
Well, exactly.
It felt like it just was going on. And I think that you're describing something I've often felt about music, is that I mean, obviously the track time is the run time is the run time, but how it feels depends so much by like, you know, how it's composed. Like to me, grindcore albums with a lot of tracks that aren't that interesting, even though they're all short tracks, it feels long. Obviously it's objectively not a long album, but just if it's dragging, it's dragging. It doesn't matter how long it is or how many.
Nails' Unsilent Death, like, you know what, like I can sit down and listen to that, and like that does not feel like 10 minutes. It feels like 20 maybe.
Because and that's the flip side where it's actually like engaging, and interesting.
But this isn't, sadly. But I really feel bad about it, just because
it really, like, it sucks.
Bjork is awesome,
and it sucks because not only like she doesn't release albums, she releases albums like at like 3 years, I think, in between, and that's at like absolute floor. Sometimes she's taking a little bit longer, so it's not like we're gonna get another go like a year or two from now. Like it might be a few years before we get a new album.
I'm pretty sure she puts out remix albums in between. I'm pretty sure she's put out a remix album in between every single studio album. So I've never
been huge into remix albums personally.
Well, so. I mean, neither have I. But I mean, it's still something. It's
something. Yeah, that's true.
So, but yeah, I'm not. Yeah, but I wonder what could have made this better. Like, I think the first thing, obviously, take out a number of the songs out of the track listing.
Absolutely.
And I would say probably give it a body memory.
Or at least cut down the runtime of some of them.
Yeah.
At least make them more succinct, cut down the repetition. I think just some of these tracks easily could have been taken out. I think deep in the track listing, the only song that really grabbed me was Courtship. And I think there might have been a few moments in some other tracks, but at that point I was already kind of checked out.
Exactly.
So I just couldn't. But Courtship was the first one where it felt like a direct, actual song. A lot of these just felt really aloof, like really. It did feel like someone who's newly in love, just kind of, kind of playing around, and I think
that's exactly it. Is that it's brainless, just like somebody newly in love.
Yeah, which in some way that's genius if she did that on purpose. But in terms of being fun to listen to, it's just not for me. And I think. Yeah. Because this has gotten quite a bit of acclaim. I actually have the wiki page up.
I was looking at the reviews too. Like it's like universally acclaimed.
Yeah, and I feel like some of that is just the critical acclaim effect. Where you don't want to be the critic to say that the new Bjork album is bad because you're gonna get panned. It's kind of like with Kanye. I think the most negative thing I saw about The Life of Pablo was maybe a 6 or a 7, which really isn't that bad of a score.
It's sort of like Beck, like
new Beck. The new Beck album. Like I didn't listen to all of it. The new songs were bad. Like they weren't good. And I think most places they criticized it, but they didn't give it. Wasn't like they gave it like a moderate score. And it's one of those things where once you reach a certain level of acclaim. Even I'm a big fan of Converge, but whenever a Converge album comes out, it's not a matter of if it'll make metal You're Endless. It's just how high up it'll land. A lot of times I think it's deserved. Like I can remember the last album where I was like, oh, like that's bad. I don't think they put out a bad album since their earlier stuff, which I'm not as huge a fan of. But it's kind of interesting that pretty much they can do whatever they want and critics are going to eat it up, which it's deserved, but it's kind of that effect where after a while you've almost 100% secured, as long as you stay within relatively as long as you don't make like a terrible album.
I don't think this is a terrible album by any means. Like if we were to do like a worst of the year list, this would not be on it. Just because I don't think Bjork at her worst would still make a pretty solid album, and I think this is in a way Bjork at her worst. Like it's not like any part of it is so bad that I'm like I want to take my laptop and throw it out the window. Like it's not painful to listen to. It's actually very beautiful, but it's meandering in a way that is just not engaging in the least. It's a lot like listening for me to listen to a lot of the romantic composers. Mm-hmm. It's just like a lot of their symphonies and stuff just feel very too meandering to me, too aimless.
Yeah.
which I think, maybe if I knew some music theory, maybe it would make a little more sense to me. Maybe I would like it a little more, but as it stands, I just am not big on it. And I think to add to, to add all the cringy lyrics to parts of it, which, I mean, I get it. I mean, I think Bjork's really putting her heart out there.
Yeah.
And I think that's admirable. But I just like, considering some of her other lyrics that I've heard in the past, I just find this very weak, because she has had some really cool lyrics before.
She has, yeah.
Yeah, and I wish I could think of one in particular. Like, I think Hunter is interesting, but there's another one that I can't even remember. That Army of Me. Yeah, Army of Me is great.
Army of Me is really good.
Yeah.
And even the way she delivers those lyrics,
yeah,
I'm trying to figure out. I'm not really a track guy usually, so when I listen to when I was listening to Homogenic, I don't really know the track names, and why will it not let me scroll? There we go.
Yeah.
But I think it's the second song on Homogenic. Forgive me. Joga, where the way that she puts the lyrics in, where I think it's like, something about like a state of emergency.
Yeah.
And the way she, not only do I like kind of the theme and the kind of the mood that she's creating with that, the way that she kind of phrases those lyrics is very catchy, and it kind of sticks with you. It's interesting. Whereas with this, not only were the lyrics not great, but to me they just weren't, especially The Gate. I was really surprised listening to this album that The Gate was a lead single, because it was easily one of my least favorite on here. Like the phrasing, the lyrics, everything about it was just really repetitive and uninteresting, and yet it was one of the first tracks she released for this, along with Blissing Me.
I think, to go back to that Homogenic comment, like that comparison, I think, you're catching Bjork at what most considered to be like the beginning of her artistic peak.
Yeah.
And this isn't to say that she's on the down slope from this, but I think that, like, as your career goes on, I think there are certain things that you sort of stay to, and I think Bjork is an artist known for reinventing herself constantly, but I think those parts that people notice that she reinvents, I think people pay attention to those too much, because there are parts that she really keeps the same, and I think that vocal phrasing is one of those that, like, you saw a lot of those changes, like, especially in post. Like, I really liked, the way she did things in post, because they were just so, like every track had its own personality, but this one is, like, every track has that same delivery.
Yep.
And, it sucks because, she is a very, very good singer. I mean, like,
she is, absolutely.
It just befuddles me. And I mean, I guess it's just one of those, like, fools in love type of things, but I don't know if that's an excuse for making something like this, but I mean, I think to compliment it, I think it's emotionally honest.
It is,
so,
for sure.
And like I said, it's like I do think that the flutes and the nature sounds are really, really beautiful. I thought it was a really, really nice addition, and like it was just that touch it needed to separate it from its brethren in a way, and so I definitely give it credit for that. But yeah, just too long, one, too meandering, too cringy lyrics, three, like its losses are as much as its gains. Really, like it's pros are as much as it's cons.
Yeah,
sadly.
Exactly. Like you said, there are some interesting ideas throughout, but I can't see myself really returning to this. I mean, maybe several years down the line, like, did my opinion change or whatnot? But in the near future,
honestly, you go ahead. Sorry,
I was just gonna say, like, I don't see this as worth an hour and 11-minute investment. I just really don't.
I honestly don't see myself listening to this album ever again.
Yeah.
That sounds really crass and heartless, but I think, considering what I've said already about how Bjork's albums tend to feel very long, knowing that when you're listening to a Bjork album, like, for me, like, I know that I'm in it for like this amount of time, so instead of listening to like, instead of taking a chance maybe on another one of her albums, I'm just gonna put on Vespertine, or I'm just gonna put on Post, like, because like I know that that's a good listen. And so but then this, I'm like, no, like I just don't see myself listening to it again. Like maybe if maybe like if there was like a third album that sort of if it was sort of like if it was like Dante's like Paradiso in a way, like Bjork's Paradiso, her Divine Comedy, like that connected thematically to these two, maybe I would listen to it again just to see. But right now, this just sort of left it left a meh taste in my mouth because it didn't taste bad, but it didn't taste good.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that I don't want to insinuate that I really hate the music on this. Kind of like you're saying, like I don't think any of the songs here are necessarily bad. I think many of them could either be kind of cut out or clean, cut down,
or restructured too,
or restructured or something like that. But when at least an album where you have a lot of bad tracks is almost entertaining after a while. For me, one of my least favorite things is just a really mediocre album that drags on.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, there's nothing to be like, oh my god, this is so bad. Like it's you don't get like a Room style thing where like it's, oh my god, this is so awful, but I'm kind of entertained.
I actually am not even entertained by The Room. So
I've never seen The Room.
You should watch it
at some point, because especially you have the James Franco movie that's coming out, which actually looks really good and interesting.
I actually plan on seeing that. But as funny as it is,
it's one of those things where something like so bad it's good. Sometimes I appreciate that more than an album that this doesn't do much for me. Track 2 doesn't do much for me. Okay, now we're on track 7, and it really, like, I'm all set. And then, like I said, as soon as I got to Future Forever, I kind of sighed relief. And I was actually listening to it out loud with my girlfriend, and she was not, she was glad when it was over too. And again, I feel bad because I can't remember. I don't think I dislike any of Bjork's albums. She's done a lot of really interesting stuff. She always takes risks, and always, just her last album, Vonacura, I think she kind of had a little bit of critical and just fan stagnation in a sense, where fans just kind of, it was like a little bit.
She's had that for the last couple albums, actually. Like,
exactly.
Like people were lukewarm on Volta and Biophilia as well.
Exactly. So it was a few albums where people were kind of meh on, and then suddenly she was able to come back with Vonacura, which really sparked a lot of interest again, which was great. And it's great when an artist is able to, kind of like Bowie, how Bowie went out with one of the best albums of his career, in my opinion. Yeah, with Black Star.
Really could be the best album of his career.
I fucking love Black Star.
Yeah, me too, man.
But it's great when like a prolific, really established artist kind of comes back with something like this. And it was impressive that she was able to do that. But I'm just not.
Yeah.
Again, it really is frustrating that I know that we're not going to get new material for another few years, because I was really, really excited for this after Vonacura. And this just was not up to par.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we can at least look forward to the fact that, whatever Bjork does in the future, it will be different from this.
Exactly.
So, but I definitely, she's not one of those artists to write off by any means. So I eagerly await, what she does next.
Exactly. And that it's almost like Shoo Shoo, where, I actually haven't, I don't remember the last album of theirs I really disliked, but I know I'm going to get something different every time. So if it is a dud, or if it is something I don't really care for, I know, okay, well, they're going to try something new. Maybe I'll like that. It's not like when an artist truly gets into a rut, like, I guess, kind of Mastodon, for example, where I know they've kind of switched up their formula, but for me, ever since Crack the Sky, and you can throw pretentious, hipster douchebag tag at me, whatever, but like ever since Crack the Sky, they've kind of hit into a rut that now I just don't care anymore. And I feel like Bjork is one of those artists that you never really have to worry about that. Like you said, she's always going to challenge herself. She's always going to do something different. Even the fact that this was kind of a sister album to Vonacura, there's a lot of unique features to it. Like, she didn't just do the same thing. So yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys. Scott, you have any final word besides that?
I think it's worth a listen for sure. I think people, if especially if you've never heard Bjork before,
if you've never heard Bjork, you need to put on Vesper Gain.
Yeah, if you've never heard that, fix it. Like, put on any of her old stuff, and it is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think this is worth a shot. Obviously, for longtime Bjork fans, I know several of my friends who do like Bjork enjoy this album. So, but just for me, I'm disappointed, and I was hoping for something different.
Yeah, same here. But thanks for listening. If you guys have any comments, let us know what you think, and
let us know why we're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
All right, take care.
See ya.
Torture guard.